Hello, lovely. Welcome to my presentation. This one is all about saying goodbye to launch burnout. Now, before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that I am presenting this session today on the lands of the Ngunnawal people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you gather today and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge their perpetual connection to land, waters, sky, and community, and I do so with gratitude and respect. So, I would like to start off with just letting you know that you're in the right place if this is you. So, if you are a course creator, a coach, or a consultant, and you're constantly finding yourself in a cycle of high energy content creation, followed by days or perhaps even weeks of hibernation in recovery mode, perhaps you're an introvert, a highly sensitive person, or have low energy levels, and you find particular marketing methods very draining. And even though you know you're supposed to or meant to be doing the thing, you really, really don't want to be doing the thing. So then you do none of the things. Or maybe you are or have been in burnout due to masking your true nature, or you've been following an extroverted guru's methods, but they don't truly get you. And so it doesn't feel like it's 100% right for you. So if that sounds like you are definitely in the right place. So, hello, my name is Bree Boucher, and I am the host of the Systems, Strategy, and Soul podcast. I'm the creator of the Introverts Who Launch monthly membership. I'm the introvert launch coach inside the Introverts Who Launch hybrid one-to-one group program, which is actually going to be relaunching in March. I'm an introvert who followed a lot of good advice when first starting my business, but I found myself burning out really quickly. And why? Because the advice that I was given didn't work for my unique energy signature. So, as I said earlier on, I'm going to be taking you through how you can say goodbye to launch burnout with the 3 Ps of success. Okay, so let's get into it. So, what are the 3 Ps to success? Firstly, we are going to be prepared. Secondly, we're going to be proactive. And thirdly, we're going to have a plan. And so, with all of those 3 Ps, we can actually say goodbye for good to launch burnout. How good is that? Does that sound amazing? All right, let's keep going then. All right, so let's start off with the be prepared. So, what I'm talking about here is things like batching your content and calendar blocking your launch runways. And when I talk about launch runways, that includes things like your pre-launch, pre-launch, launch, open and close cart, and post-launch. So what happens in pre-launch is sort of like the warming up the audience. It's probably more like your general content that you produce on a regular basis, but it's always going to be aligned to what you're launching, because what you're launching is always going to be aligned with what your content is. It's all this beautiful, melting pot of goodness. Your pre-launch is where you are drawing people's attention towards what you are actually going to be putting out into the world and what you are actually launching before you actually open the doors and invite people in. When you're in launch phase, this might be where you are calling people into a launch activation event where you're bringing them, behind the scenes or into, a process that you teach that essentially takes them through to the product that you're selling at the end of the launch activation event. And then we talk about launch. So that is when you've opened the doors, you've invited people to, be part of your product. You're selling it to them. You're, going straight into that open cart phase where you are taking people through that and answering objections, and you're addressing all of the questions that people might have, and then closing the cart and closing that off with a post-launch debrief, and in addition to that, onboarding all of your new students and clients, and making sure that they have this amazing experience as soon as they hit go on that button when they purchase from you. So when I talk about, calendar blocking, it's knowing what you're going to be doing in that whole runway, and knowing, the time that it takes, and how long you're going to have your cart open for, and how long you're going to focus on the pre-launch stuff, and how long, are you going to be in that post-launch phase before you start the pre-launch phase again. Like, how much time do you need between launches? Now, you also need to know your goals and what it takes to achieve them. And so, what I'm talking about here is like your launch goals. What are you actually aiming for with your launch, and what does it take to achieve those goals? And so, what I mean by that is like knowing how many contact hours you can handle within a launch, and setting up those boundaries so that you can be clear about, like finding the right amount of time to complete something. So being prepared is all about having, processes in place, and knowing, how long it takes you to do something, knowing the kind of actions you need to take, so that you can hit those goals, so you can achieve those goals. And in addition, looking at things like, my goal is X, that means I need to have X amount of people, or Y amount of people come to my landing page, and I need to have Z amount of people follow through from the landing page to sign up for my launch activation event, and I need A amount of people, come through on and actually show up on that webinar or challenge, or whatever it is that you're activating people through, to then know that you hit your goals, um, because you've achieved, the amount of people, you've seen the amount of people come through your funnel through that period of time. Um, you need to know how often you can launch and for how long. So when I talked about that launch runway earlier, given that it can actually go for quite a long period of time, you need to know what is the maximum you can handle within yourself energetically before you will start to kind of really kind of fall into a heap, and really takes too much of your energy to maintain. And so really, it's like I said before, it's about like knowing what your hours, that you can handle, like um, how many people can you hold the energy with in a Zoom room for? How many like lives can you actually produce before you start to feel a bit drained? What is too much and what is enough for you? How much is too much in terms of um, what you're producing? How much is too much? Like, how many emails is too much for you? And I'm talking about not what your audience needs from you, because that varies. It's more about what feels appropriate for you, what's going to feel like enough, and not going to push you beyond. If 8 emails in a launch cycle is way too many for you to actually write yourself, is that too many to write? Do you only have the ability to write 5 or 3, whatever it is? Know what's too much or what is enough for you. Um, And then I want you to think about how or who you can ask for external support from people that can help you. So, what do you need from others to be able to launch without burning out? And so, by being prepared in this space and asking people, support networks, friends, people that you're in relationships with, family, all of that, asking them how they can support you in this time. So letting them know what's coming up with a launch, letting them know how busy you might be in a certain period of time, letting them know that you're not going to be necessarily available to do X, Y, Z. And so maybe they can help you with, preparing meals. Maybe they can help you more with cleaning, or maybe you can hire someone to clean during that time frame. Maybe they can just provide you with hugs, and that is enough. But just keeping people like informed and helping them to help you. And then from the business side of things, can a VA support you? Like if you are someone that has a VA, but not frequently, can you just increase their hours over this, period of time to support you more during a launch? What automations do you need to implement, or perhaps have built out further and like have more robust features? I know for me, whenever I'm in a launch, I will take my Zapier account from a free account up to a paid account, and sometimes I will have to increase, how much I'm spending each month in that time frame because of the volume of automations that I'm creating in that time frame. So, things can expand and contract as much as you need in these time frames. They don't have to always be on, is what I'm sort of saying. And maybe you would benefit from having like a launch coach or a launch BFF, just like myself, there to support you and to really kind of like hold your hand and cheer you on and give you all that support in the moment, and like, be there behind you. So there's lots of people that are out there that can support you during your launch, but be prepared, because if you are in the moment, and you're struggling and you haven't actually put all of those plans into place, and you haven't told people what you're needing from them, if you haven't sort of already organized someone that you can jump on a call with for an emergency coaching session, then it's going to be a little bit harder for you. So be prepared. That's the first P. All right, the next P is be proactive. So, what I'm talking about here is no more reactive marketing. You need to know what your marketing plan is, what platforms you're going to be using, and your frequency and how you show up. So there's no more, throwing more um, platforms into the mix just in a launch, or even in your general kind of marketing strategy. I want you to really lean into what feels good to you. No more reactive strategy. So, know in advance what your strategy is, what sales method you're going to take to call in your soulmate clients and students, and really focus in on what feels good to you. So a lot of the time people get caught up because we are following other people's solutions or other people's strategies. There's a bit of a cookie cutter approach to something, and it's all well and good to model off someone, but unless you are someone that has the exact same energy signature, the exact same, way of being, thinking, and doing, it's not necessarily going to work exactly right for you. And so you can find yourself following someone else's systems, and they don't feel in alignment with your energy signature. And so you therefore start to burn out. So on that, there's no more following the latest trend cycle. So no more shiny trends. As I said before, I really want you to lean into what you already know and do well. So we all know reels are like what we are meant to be doing, what we need to be doing. But maybe that's not right for you. Maybe that amount of content creation is just going to kill you. And instead, perhaps what you need to implement is a 9 grid static post on Instagram, and then just focus on your stories and focusing on the people that you already have in your world and nurturing them, rather than feeling like you need to go out and just constantly create. And this comes from a past Reels coach. So there's this is there's no right way to do things, I suppose is what I'm saying. The trend cycles are something that you can get really caught up in, and before you know it, you have, spent 3 months just churning out content, and it hasn't resulted in any return on investment. All it's given you is, no more energy, and you just don't know how to kind of do the important things, the things that actually move your needle forward because you don't have any more energy to do that. All you've been doing is creating content for the sake of it. And so, what is your natural style of communication? What is something, how do you feel like, do you feel the most comfortable like on camera? Do you feel the most comfortable with the camera off and just talking to someone like this with a screen or no screen? Maybe it's all audio. It doesn't really matter what you see other people doing, as long as what feels good to you. And it may take some practice. It might take some time to like journal and dig deep and think about what actually has worked for you in the past, and just being honest with yourself. So for me, I do love to have the camera on, but I know that, often what will happen is I get distracted by looking at myself in the camera, and that really draws my energy down. I don't know what it is about that, but, for presentations and for lives, I often find myself really exhausted at the end of it because not only have I been talking nonstop, one to one, um, it's not a conversation. I'm not having a conversation with you. I am merely talking to you. Um, that tends to drain me really quickly. And so, if and when I, plan something like this, it's going to have time at the end of this, to for me to recover. So knowing, your natural style of communication and what feels good to you. And I want you to find your messaging or your voice that feels in alignment for you. So, really practicing your messaging and how you come across and honing it before your launch. So, in that pre phase, really working out, how you like to talk to people, how you like to support people, how you like to, communicate with them, and just noticing what feels good and what feels weird or funny or awkward for you. All right, and then lastly, we have having a plan. So there's no more planning to fail. There's no more leaving everything to the last minute unless that is the plan. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that I'm presenting this to you. I'm recording this at the last minute. However, it was always my plan to do that. I knew what my schedule looked like when I agreed to present at this summit, and in doing that, I knew when I had to, submit the presentation, and I knew what timeline I was working with, and so I made a choice to do this at the last minute, but that was my plan. And it's not that I, you know, I'm recording this now with no kind of pre-thought. I always knew that I was going to be recording at this point in time, rather than, oh my god, it's the last minute. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to throw it together. So there's a difference with that. So, you know, just knowing how you work is really important, but also, planning out when things are when you're gonna launch, when you're going to, say yes to that 8-week launch runway. So when I talk about an 8-week launch runway, we are talking about that pre-launch, launch, open cart, post-launch phase. And over that period of time, you will have, your content planned out in that pre-launch runway or launch runway in itself. So by saying yes to having that sort of structure, then you are really allowing yourself to have like little micro tasks or even sort of like mini milestones where you are, you know, knowing that you need to complete certain tasks on time rather than everything all happening all at the last minute because, you're just doing things in the moment. You're not being proactive, as I said before. So I want you to start to say yes to pre-written and scheduled launch content. So no more flying by the seat of your pants with content that you're writing in the moment. There's a time and place for that, but it's certainly not in launch. And having your launch content pre-written and scheduled in advance will just make your launches feel so much more luxurious and allows you to turn up and show up when you are in the open cart. With so much more energy and so much more, vitality. Um, so I want you to say yes to rest breaks and say yes to recovery days during a launch. It is okay for you to kind of take a break and to have a moment in a launch where you aren't visible as much as you think that you need to be every day. You don't need to be, as long as you have, some of that pre-scheduled content in place, no one's going to know. And then also, if you do a live and that is exhausting or draining for you, then you want to schedule or acknowledge that you're going to need some rest breaks after that. So having a live scheduled and then allowing yourself to take the whole rest of the day off, totally, like a game changer. It's really about kind of and knowing yourself, but allowing yourself to do what you need to be doing. And I want you to really know your hours and to stick to them. So like we have a finite people that have finite time really get shit done. So often like mums and people with children really get their stuff together. Like people that have businesses with constraints on them, they can get things done in a really short amount of time. And this is because of there's a Parkinson's law, which is essentially that work expands so to fill the time that's available for its completion. So when you know that you're a procrastinator, you really are allowing, for things to kind of expand and, you take the time that you want to take to do the thing because you've allowed yourself, so much time to do it in. Whereas if you, like only allow a certain amount of period of time to actually get a piece of, content written or a live recorded or whatever it might be, then you're going to get it done in that time because you have the external constraints involved. Now I will give one caveat, which is knowing actually how long things take. So that's really important. I often find myself caught on this in that I think it's going to take a shorter period of time than it actually does. So really, that one is about tracking the time and understanding how long things take you to do them. So those are the three P's to success. And I want to leave you with, the thought of like what got you here won't get you there. And so doing the same thing over and over again will get you the same results. So I know that you're ready to say goodbye to launch burnout for good now that you know these three P's to success. So repeat after me. What got me here won't get me there. And I wanted to talk to you about where to go from here. So, there's like a real possibility that you'll fall back into your old habits. Like, that's just human nature, right? It's so easy. Like, I've been there too. You're going to start listening to or following the success guaranteed strategies from some new internet guru and get caught up in what works for them. And then next minute, you're following all of the trends again. And, like, you're on a path to a burnout. So let's not do that again, okay? Instead, I would love to invite you to join me inside my free three-part audio series, Introvert's Guide to Launching, where I'll take you through the lessons that help you, really get to understand what feels good for you. So there's three parts to it. It's taking you through the plan, the energy, and the action that you need to take for your next launch. So you'll find hopefully a little bit about that below this presentation for you to have a look at, completely free, and it's on a private podcast feed, so you can listen to it on the go while you're doing the cleaning or walking the dog or whatever it might be. So I wanted to take a minute just to say thank you to Victoria for having me here on the Lucrative Lead Summit. And I wanted to make mention, if you get the All Access Pass, you'll find my 5-day freebie funnel challenge, which helps you to plan out and execute your next or first freebie and to turn it into a funnel that works on autopilot to bring in your new leads. And you can find me on Instagram at the Brie Boucher. And I'd love for you to listen to my System, Strategy and Soul podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of the other places you can listen to on. And then lastly, if you wanted to find me on Facebook, you can find me at the Brie Boucher is my business page, or just type in Brie Boucher and you'll find my private personal account as well. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you online sometime soon. All right. Bye.